So you're having arguments with your wife, but what if you could win those arguments and make her feel good all at the same time? Today, I'm going to be working on this cartoon illustration while I talk to you about how to win arguments with your wife. And spoiler alert, winning is not what you think it is. Let's get started. Okay, so you've been arguing with your wife lately, and you want to get to a point where you don't have so many arguments going on. So, what exactly is an argument then? I think that basically an argument is a fight in verbal form. So, what is a fight? A fight is two people who are against each other and they're trying to inflict harm on each other, with their goal being to just inflict so much harm over time that they eventually defeat the other person. Okay, so if that's a fight, then what's the opposite of a fight? The opposite is connection, which is two people who respect each other coming together and bonding over a commonly shared value. It's a relationship where both people mutually benefit while they also bring value and enrichment to each other. Okay, now stop and look at both of those definitions and ask yourself this question. Which of these two scenarios is the one I would rather have? Okay, now I want to ask you a question. Which one of these did you sign up for when you got married? Think back to your wedding. When you took your vows, did you say something like, I take this woman to be my lawfully wedded wife, whom I promise to always be opposed to and to try my very best to inflict harm upon repeatedly until finally I just crush her spirit and emerge victorious, having defeated my opponent? Or did you say something like, I take this woman to be my wife, to love and to cherish, to take care of her and to always support her for as long as I shall live? Which promise did you actually make? We all made that second promise. Now, that does not mean that keeping that second promise is easy or convenient or self-gratifying. In fact, the underlying theme of that promise is sacrifice. The very same sacrifice that Jesus made for his wife, the church, when he laid down his life for the church. And that is what you are called to do as a godly husband. And that's what you actually promised to do in those vows you made. Laying down your life doesn't mean literally dying. Most often, it means just putting aside your own interests and putting aside your own pride and just releasing the need to be right. There are lots of ways in which we can lay down our lives for our wives as husbands. And perhaps the biggest way that we can do that is in how we communicate with them. Communication is at the root of the majority of marriage problems people face. It's the most common struggle that most marriages face, and it also just so happens to be the one that most men don't naturally come equipped to do well. So today I'm going to break down communication and figure out how we can do it better. And I'm going to try to do it without getting all therapist-y. When you and your wife need to communicate about something, whether it's obviously something big and important or if it's seemingly trivial, the best thing you can do from the very start is to seek to understand. Oh, geez, here we go. I thought you said we were not going to get all therapist-y about this. Dude, I feel you. Just hear me out for a second. When an argument starts to form, you'll be tempted to stand your ground and defend your stance on the issue at hand. This is a pivotal moment for you, and you don't want to screw it up. Learn to catch yourself before you get defensive and seek to understand what the argument is actually about. Because in most cases, it's not actually about what it seems to be about. Most arguments are about something that's related to another thing that's related to another thing that's related to something else. And that's especially the case with women. So, for example, my wife is left-handed. So that means that when she's making dinner and she's cutting up vegetables, she holds the knife in her left hand, and I hold the knife in my right hand. So one time I saw her making dinner and she was cutting up vegetables and she was holding the knife with her left hand. And I saw that and I said, wow, that seems so strange to hold the knife with your left hand. I would not be able to do that. I would probably cut my fingers off because I'm just uncoordinated with my left hand. And that actually upset her. And she started to get mad and started to argue with me. And I was just like, what is the deal? All I did was say something about how you were cutting left-handed. So for me, all I was doing was making an observation and commenting about it out loud. But a whole different thing was going on in her head. So for her, what she had happening in her mind was that my comment reminded her of how she struggled her whole life because she's left-handed, because she doesn't feel like she fits in. She's a left-handed person living in a right-handed world. So she's reminded of times in school as a kid where people always made fun of her, and she's thinking, this is just like when I was a kid and I was the weird kid in class because I was left-handed and people were telling me I was not normal, and that was really invalidating. And then that makes me also think about how I was also the weird kid at school because I had ADHD, and that made it really hard for me academically. And so I struggled in school, and I always felt like I was disappointing to my parents, and I didn't fit in, and I still don't fit in because now I'm an adult and I still struggle with ADHD, and I feel like I can't do anything right. And apparently, I can't even cut vegetables the right way because I used the wrong hand to do it. And I'm just fundamentally flawed, and I guess I suck at life. And now I'm not even good enough for my own husband. All of that from a comment about cutting left-handed. Now we've got a wife who's holding back tears, a discussion that turns into an argument because then I got defensive and I said, oh, that's not what I meant. I actually meant this. And I just was saying it's odd to see that because I don't cut that way. And then she's like, oh, well, I'm sorry, I'm so weird. And then I was like, well, I can't even make an observation without you flipping out and getting upset. I I guess I can't do anything right. And then she's like, I guess I can't do anything right. So the key here that I want you guys to understand is when an argument comes up, you've got to stop yourself before you start getting defensive. Whatever's happening is not a personal attack on you most of the time. It's because your wife is being attacked by something internally that is setting this off. It's not really about the thing you're arguing about. So, step one on this is step back and just don't get defensive. Just ask calmly for your wife to walk you through what's happening in her head. Go back to the first episode that I did about how to listen and remember those steps. Just keep your cool, ask her to explain what's going on. She will appreciate this even if at the time she doesn't act like she does. She might still seem really mad, but she will appreciate this. Why? Because by asking her to explain her thoughts, you're doing three things. Number one, you're not getting defensive. You're not trying to prove that you're right or stand your ground or tell her she's wrong. These things just inflame and perpetuate arguments. They are argument fuel, and it makes the argument turn into an even bigger fight. And remember that old saying, no one ever actually wins a fight. Number two, you're being curious about her feelings instead of focusing on your feelings. That means a lot to a woman because they are emotional creatures. They have tons of emotions and tons of thoughts about those emotions. That's overwhelming. Remember from that first episode about how to listen, I was saying that when women have a lot of feelings, you want to team up with them and help them sort through those feelings, not tell them how ridiculous their feelings are. And number three, you are moving the interaction away from a fight and into a deeper conversation. By being curious and not defensive, you're taking away the fuel from the argument. A fire cannot burn without oxygen, and you are starving the flames of oxygen. So you're essentially taking your wife by the hand and saying, I'm here, I see you struggling, and I want to understand. So the effect of doing these three things is that you de-escalate the issue, you move the conversation toward understanding instead of arguing, and most importantly, you meet your wife where she is at and you join her on her side instead of it being you against her. So you can think of an argument like an MMA fight. You've got two people who are against each other, fighting it out, each of them trying to win. No husband wants to fight with his wife, and no wife wants to fight with her husband. Both of them do want to be together on the same side, united. You move the interaction away from the boxing ring or the octagon and into a safe space when you seek to understand. Then you take the gloves off and lower your fists by not getting defensive. And then instead of throwing punches, you embrace and you join each other. You can't punch somebody and hug them at the same time. And going back to those vows from your wedding, you'll be doing what you promised to do by joining her in her feelings and supporting her, loving her through the struggles. Some of you guys might come from families where this sort of thing was not modeled very well for you by your own parents when you were growing up. Maybe you had parents that fought all the time. Maybe it got physical. Maybe there was just lots of yelling. That's okay. It's not your fault that you didn't have good modeling. It's not your destiny that you become like your parents. The good news is that you can start learning and practicing this now. Now, some of you are probably thinking, yeah, that's great, but my wife seriously makes a huge deal out of the dumbest stuff. She gets mad at the drop of a hat, and I feel like just entering the same room with her is like walking into a minefield. I never know what's going to set her off. And to that, let me just say, we all feel that way at one time or another. That is how marriage is sometimes. There are times when our wives seem like a stack of dynamite and they're just waving the detonate button right in our faces, just daring us not to press it. And on top of that, if your wife is in her 40s, there's a good chance she's in the throes of perimenopause, in which case those hormones are so volatile that you might trigger a full-blown tear-ridden breakdown just by breathing wrong or chewing too loud. And that's a whole subtopic I'll cover in a separate episode. But just know that until then, I feel you, dude. I get it. I feel your pain. And I promise it's going to be okay. Your wife might have some serious things that she's struggling with that happened to her in the past. And those things could be contributing to her being easily triggered. Maybe, for example, maybe she was abused. Maybe she was constantly told that she was worthless or stupid for years and years. She could have any number of insecurities that contribute to the root cause of the argument. And remember the whole thing with my wife and being left-handed, for an example. But odds are, if your wife has a traumatic past, you know about it already, and she might have unresolved issues that need to be dealt with. If that's the case, it's her responsibility to get the necessary help dealing with those things. And that's something that you can only encourage her to do. You can't force her to do it. Either way, your job as her husband is to make the sacrifice that Jesus made by laying down your life and supporting her and loving her through it. Now, I'm sure some of you guys are listening and you're thinking, dude, the title of this episode is How to Win Any Argument with Your Wife. All you've done is talk about all this soft, sensitive stuff. When are you going to tell us how to win arguments? The answer is you win by joining, not defeating. This is not a strategy lesson on how to deliver the perfect, crushing comeback in an argument that'll stop your wife in her tracks and make her say those two magical words, "You're right." Okay, this is a lesson on understanding what winning actually is when it comes to arguing with your wife. And winning is laying down your life, sacrificing your pride and the need to be right, and then joining her in whatever hidden issues are underlying her side of the argument. Seek to understand, drop your fists, lower your guard, and just love her by showing her that you're on her team. This is where those fruits of the Spirit come into play. In Galatians 5, verses 22 and 23, the Apostle Paul describes the fruits of the Spirit as love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. Those are the things that we want to demonstrate for our wives when these kind of situations come up. You want to show her that love by remaining patient with her, kind, and gentle, just like those fruits of the Spirit. And then that last one, self-control, that's where your ability to hold back defensiveness comes in. You cannot be defensive and join your wife and be on her side at the same time. Those things cannot be happening together. When you defend, you push her away. And the same thing happens in reverse. If she gets defensive, she's pushing you away. So then you end up with these times where you guys have an argument and you don't speak to each other for the rest of the night. Everything's awkward. She tells you you've got to go sleep on the couch, all that kind of stuff. You want to avoid all that. We entered into marriage because we wanted to be the best friend and supporter of our wife and to get that in return from her. You might not always get that in return from her at a 1-to-1 ratio, exactly equal to how much you do it for her. She's not always going to do that for you. These kind of situations come up with me and my wife a lot of times where one of us will get so defensive and we'll allow it to just be awkward and weird for hours and hours. And neither one of us really wants to be the first to apologize. But that whole time, both of us are carrying around these feelings of wishing that we weren't feeling this way and wanting to reconnect. People can be really stubborn sometimes, especially us guys. Apologizing, it's shown to us as something that's a weakness. For some reason in our culture, we are taught that apologizing and being sensitive and having feelings or respecting other people's feelings, all that crap is just so weird and non-male like. It's just soft, weak stuff that we've got to avoid. Again, let's go back to Jesus and how he treated his wife, the church. Even people who were not part of the church, he still died for those people. He still sacrificed himself. He wasn't a doormat. He didn't just lay down and let people just treat him like garbage. I mean, he got real with some people and he told them what was up sometimes when they really made him mad. But that doesn't mean that he lost self-control. It meant that his anger at that time was appropriate. But we need to not make that the default thing that we go to. When something happens between us and our wives, we don't want to just rush to be mad and defensive. James 1:19 says, "Let every man be quick to listen and slow to use his tongue and slow to lose his temper. For a man's temper is never the means of achieving God's true goodness." Don't you want to give your wife God's true goodness? Do you not want to help her feel loved and cared for and supported as you promised in your vows? Be slow to anger, slow to lose your temper, slow to use your tongue, and be quick to listen. Seek to understand. Thank you for listening. As always, I hope you will leave me a comment and let me know what you found helpful about this. Please share this with another guy that you think could find this helpful, and I'll see you in the next episode.